Movie Wars.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Movie Wars podcast.
Yeehaw!
We're back with Seth.
What's up?
And our friend Mozart's back. What's up, baby?
How's it going, everybody?
Yeah, if you listen to our Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, he was fantastic on there, and he's joining us for Brazil today.
I am so excited. This is my number 4 movie ever made, as far as my top 100 are concerned.
That's awesome.
I first saw this movie. My best friend growing up, John, he loved the movie and introduced me to it when I was probably 16 or 17, and it just completely blew my mind and changed the way I looked at how a film could be made in general. Just the absurdist side of things, but also the intricate choreography of some of the shots and the things people were doing in the shots. Like, there's so much we're going to be able to talk about. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I was shocked, and Seth and I keep a list. We have this list of thousands of movies we want to cover, and we kind of, every time we decide episodes, we kind of split up. I pick one off my list, you pick one, or we do a franchise. But I saw this movie on your list, and I was kind of shocked I hadn't seen it because I do love Terry Gilliam. My favorite author of all time is Hunter S. Thompson, and he directed Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas with Johnny Depp, the adaptation. And then, of course, 12 Monkeys was the first movie I ever saw by him, and that movie completely blew my mind.
And then Time Bandits, such a great, fun, pre-Goonies kind of story. So good. And then we were talking about this on the way over, the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, Heath Ledger's the last film that he died during. It is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
So
you guys
good.
are also forgetting Baron Munchausen.
Oh, yeah.
Like, have you guys ever seen Baron Munchausen?
I haven't, but
I haven't, but I've heard of
my
it.
Goodness, it's a good one. It's a
Yeah.
good one. He's also done, there's some great movies out.
I mean, Monty Python.
Monty
we definitely
Python.
have to talk about that. Like,
It's the only thing I have to be not excited about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't love it either.
I have to be in the mood for it.
You know, the thing is that I always thought that the humor was never, for me, I thought it was really silly, but I also, what is it? I think it kind of ruined the Spanish Inquisition too. Nobody ever takes it that serious. And you know, the thing is that like people always treat the Spanish Inquisition as like a really bad thing. I mean, like a really like funny, silly, like, oh, let's not take that serious. And then, you know, being Native American, you end up realizing, man, this is what caused so much torture to Native Americans from New Mexico.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the history of the Spanish Inquisition. And did you, side note, you maybe want to keep this or not keep this, but did you know that the original KKK outfit comes from the Spanish Inquisition?
I did know that, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not some redneck in Alabama's like, I need a sheet.
No. For some weird reason, I mean, living in Barcelona, you see a lot of the outfits, and you're like, wait, why is this?
Yeah.
And then the people in Spain are like, oh, you know, it has nothing to do with that. No, it does. In the Spanish Inquisition, Queen Isabella's brother was ruler before that, and he was just awful. And so there's all these crooks and criminals. No, but the Spanish Inquisition, there were the people who were torturing the Jews at that time would wear these outfits in the oldest paintings. And so in the oldest paintings, they'd be burning Jews, torturing them, putting them on these like awful.
It's crazy.
things. Yeah,
Did not know this.
It's insane. And so I feel like it's interesting when we think about humor and, you know, ignorance. And I love Terry Gilliam. I love Terry Gilliam so much. The one thing I love about him is that what you say is that storytelling, story structure, his way of, you know, rising to the rising action and to the downfall are so unbelievably creative. It's so subconscious, so surreal. I am a surrealistic filmmaker. I love David Lynch and I love Terry Gilliam for the amount of surrealism they put that feels dreamlike, feels out of this world, feels like it can't be explained, but it can be interpreted for so many people to come in and make something of their own. And it's incredibly magical.
And I think this is a particularly incredible example of all of that. Like transporting you to a world that feels familiar, but also feels a bit fantastical. The dream sequences throughout the whole movie are just some of the best art I have ever seen in my life. It's as good as some of the best paintings I've ever seen in the world.
And he's a total nutcase to work with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you guys see Lost in La Mancha, right?
I haven't.
Oh, I did hear
documentary.
about that.
Yeah, the documentary about what it's like to work with him.
Yeah.
Nutcase. Totally needs everything real, which I love.
Yeah.
And you know, when you watch this movie, the built sets and like this is, you and I were just talking about this before. Is fuck CGI.
Fuck it.
Fuck it.
Fuck it.
And what CGI doesn't capture is it doesn't capture gravity. I have a master's degree in stop motion animation because I hate CGI so much, and I love. There's a shot in the beginning, also about built sets. I love production design and miniatures and everything. Everything about this movie is like love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. There's a lower angle. And that's the other great thing about cinematography is being able to like have these happy accidents of like him before he hits the fly and before it hits the typewriter.
Yeah.
The typewriter is on the side angle and there's like this paper coming down and it's looking up and it's such an incredibly beautiful shot. And you're like, oh wow.
Yeah.
And you know, it's all there's so I mean like, miniature sets too.
Yeah.
And like with gravity once again. You know, when he's flying up there and he's looking at the landscape and then the landscape goes all of that slow motion dirt falling down. Gravity.
Yeah.
It feels, you know, it's real. Even though some people will be like, oh, look at how homemade and silly that is. Like,
right.
Oh, but it's so much more real. And it's
the point. Like the point of keeping it as real as possible is not only just gravity, but also with animation, with computer animation, there is always going to be that uncanny valley. Even if you're animating a ship or an inanimate object, and it's not people, there's still always something there where your brain knows it's not real. But the moment you have the same thing done, a great example, the original version of the second Star Wars movie, Episode 5. The Millennium Falcon in that versus in the remade versions, the special editions, you can tell that it's animated. You can tell that he went back with a computer and just put it over the original puppet, set piece that he had built that was the exterior of the Millennium Falcon, and it's so much cheaper because of it.
But do you also think that that's just the generation we come from? We grew up in the generation of seeing like, I grew up loving old Sinbad movies.
Yeah.
Ray Harryhausen. Right?
Mm-hmm. Ray Harryhausen is so good.
You know, that's every moment of that. Do you wonder and think that the new generation who grew up with with CGI and that's what they know, do you think they look back at these movies and think, oh, this is like gross?
I think it depends. I genuinely think it depends because you look at the 1933 King Kong, and then you look at the 1970s King Kong, and then you look at Peter Jackson's King Kong. All three...
I know you love Peter Jackson.
I do, but I'm using this example for a very specific reason because all three of them have very different avenues of how they made Kong work. You have full-out stop motion in 1933. You have a dude in a monkey suit in the 70s, and then you have Peter Jackson who... legitimately, to this day, the animation for Kong himself stands above anything I have seen in the last 15 years. And even with that, though, there's still something about that old stop motion that I can't get over. Like, it's so beautiful and it still feels real because it is real. Like, I don't know. I do have a feeling that people who are used to the cartoony look of the Marvel movies and superhero movies that are so prevalent today might just think that that's what a movie is. But then you also have those same people who watch Christopher Nolan movies, as he is one of the only ones making these gigantic movies and trying to do everything that he can in camera. And I see people watch those movies and comment on those movies with awe and wonder, because you don't really have anyone else blowing up a plane as it crashes into a building at an airport, or a filmmaker who's going to practically recreate the look of an atomic bomb. Like, I think looking back, once we get through this kind of superhero phase that is very reminiscent of the spaghetti western phase, I think people are going to start wanting to bring the scale back down and bring things more in camera again.
I hope so.
I hope so much.
It seems to be more creative and more realistic for me. I think that, CGI has always been. We've just been having to watch it get developed.
Yeah.
I love what the animator from Ghost of the Shell said in that movie. The CGI version, someone who is Native American and brown, and also, an animator lover. It's okay for Scarlett Johansson to be the Ghost in the Shell. She's a fucking robot.
Yeah.
She's not Asian.
Yeah.
He made it very clear he was inspired by American elements. And, but he thought, in his quote of watching the movie, he said, it's interesting to see my movie come into CGI. And he was on the set, and he says, it's still in its development stage. He's just like, the thing about animation is that it's been going on for such a long time that we've already mastered and perfected it in so many, and it really has. I mean, drawing animation has been mastered and perfected to so many elements. You watch old Disney movies, you watch some anime movies, Ghost in the Shell is a really beautiful animated film. Akira is a beautiful animated film. Miyazaki's are so beautifully animated as well. I've never seen a CGI movie and I've been like, oh damn. It's just it all, and it was spoiled for me in our generation because of Transformers.
Yeah.
That was such a big in your face. It just looks like fucking farts.
Yeah.
It looks like computered farts just in your face the whole entire time. Or, how about my first introduction to CGI was Power Rangers. The ooze.
Yeah.
It's so terrible. It's really bad. Or like The Mummy. Oh man.
Oh, I literally just rewatched those a couple months ago, and it is egregious how bad the animation is in that movie.
And we all are here talking about these really ugly moments of CGI that don't feel like they're made with love.
Yeah.
They feel like they're made with insecurity. And then we can go and look at this movie and say, you can look and see how homemade all of these little pipes are in, but it's so made with love.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much. I mean, it's like there's a difference between, let's use CGI because it might save money. I don't know if it did. For some people, or but it just seems like McDonald's compared to going to a really delicious home cooked meal.
Yeah.
Would you want to go eat at McDonald's? I love McDonald's. Or would you like to go eat a delicious home cooked meal from your grandma?
Yeah.
And that's the difference between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think there was a maybe 12-year period from Jurassic Park up through maybe 2006, the first couple of Pirates of the Caribbean movies, where for whatever reason, and I do feel like part of it was the best filmmakers utilizing CGI at the time were using it to enhance and
T2.
not to, T2 especially, but they were using it to enhance and not to make the movie. They were just using it to do the things that they could not physically do.
Yeah.
And there was that 12-year period where it all looked really good. And then as soon as it became the method for filmmaking is when everything just has this weird, washed out, cartoony
Sheen.
look. Yeah.
And it had to be made with love. Like James Cameron talks about, and I talk about T2 is one of the best films ever made to me. But James Cameron talked about for 4 seconds of CGI in that film, it took 3 days to render 4 seconds of CGI. So
and that
you had to love it.
That was
because you were in.
That was 94?
92.
Okay.
Yeah, 92.
So that would have been right before Jurassic Park. So maybe 12, 15 years where it was just inexplicably incredible. But I think it's because it was sparingly used. It was used where it had to be instead of making the whole thing about that. You still supplemented things with real dinosaurs, real animatronics, and then when you couldn't move the animatronic the way you needed it to move, that's when they went to CGI.
So
it's so exciting seeing animatronics.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting to see stop motion. It's so exciting to see miniatures. It's just it brings back child innocence, and wonder, and creativity. It's just when you watch CGI, it's there. There's no imagination between any of it. We all as little kids grab a cup. use some scissors, poke a hole, and then start drawing. Like where it's going to be some fortress tower that we're going to like build a fortress and have archers go on the top and start killing everybody who's going to take our little tiny tower fortress from the cup away.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like that develops so much of a story right then and there where then like the CGI is like, huh.
Yep.
That's nice.
I know you have complicated feelings when it comes to Christopher Nolan, but
oh my goodness,
when I discovered, because they just announced this in the last couple of days,
I'm actually excited for it.
The Odyssey is going to be insane.
I think so too.
Did you see that the Cyclops is going to be a 6-meter tall animatronic that they're physically building in the cave because it's so big?
Wow.
Like that kind of shit is what I'm pumped about.
I'm stoked for it too.
Yeah.
I love Christopher Nolan. I just hate Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
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 It.
It's a huge.
That's a whole new.
It's
discussion.
a huge missed opportunity.
You know, if you really ever want to hear my opinions about it, I have a 1-minute song.
Yeah.
Called
it's
Oppenheimer.
a very solid song.
And it's a fucking badass punk song because and I made it 1 minute and just to sum up that that movie.
I heard it's the bomb. Your song. Sorry.
Jokes.
Low level cheese.
No, that was great. That was great. Thank you.
So getting back on Brazil here.
Yes.
A couple of notes that I have is, first of all, one thing I love about Gilliam, and I don't have the technicality, I'll call it fisheye, the fisheye lens filmmaking, where you are right in the face of what's happening. The actors, like Bruce Willis in 12 Monkeys, like because of that close-up Jonathan Pryce here, you feel like you're kind of like in.
The Coen brothers do that a lot.
Yeah.
They purposely, I saw some interviews where they were talking about Hail Caesar, actually. And one of the ways, and I think they also did this a lot in Burn After Reading, but one of the ways they really want to bring you in close to the actors is they very purposefully use low millimeter lenses. They'll use like a 25 or 35 millimeter film and physically put the camera as close to the actor as they can. But like that way their hands are like really big when they get close to the camera. But like the person almost feels larger than life.
Yeah, I did that a lot in Fear and Loathing too. The car scenes in Fear and Loathing, Terry Gilliam did it like where Johnny Depp would turn around and, you know, Hunter S. Thompson, like the character is based on him. And Depp became friends with him to, you know, really good friends. In fact, so much so he kind of got lost in that persona for that movie and didn't really come back all the way, according to him. And especially with all the mescaline in the back of the car and stuff. But, you know, when he turns around with the cigarette, with what's the thing called? The cigarette holder they used to use to.
Oh, yeah, literally that,
Yeah, and he's literally just like, his face is just right there. You're like, whoa!
Yeah.
I love that. And two, I think this is maybe. Dystopia has a huge range. I think this may be my new favorite dystopic interpretation because it really does feel like what it would feel like. The shit doesn't work, stuff's broken, but you're forced to use it. And I love how, like, and I texted you about this yesterday, it was very profound to me at the end with the torture scene because it was like, yes, it may seem on the outside like this regime is regimented and it's dystopic and it's authoritarian and it seems like there's rules. But the minute that something tries to, the dreamer, I call Jonathan Pryce, even though his name is Sam, he's like the dreamer. Yeah. The dreamer is challenging that. So, yeah, we have rules and stuff, but if you're going to try to get outside of our system, we're going to completely break our own rules and squash you.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I don't even see them breaking their own rules. They're using the rules to avoid blame. Like that whole conversation between Sam and Ian Holm where they're trying to figure out the mistake of getting Buttle killed or Tuttle killed. That whole scene is literally them going through the rules to figure out if they were actually to blame for the mistake.
Right.
And it turns out that they weren't. So they're like, perfect. We can avoid all responsibility because there's so much red tape that everyone has to get through.
And he tried to get out of it by she's technically dead.
Yeah.
You know, he's trying to he's trying to use the rules too. Yeah. It's like a battle of rules.
I always tell people that this movie is dystopian sci-fi before it became a young adult theme. I think the Hunger Games kind of ruined dystopian sci-fi in a lot of ways. This, again, it just lends itself to the absurd style that Terry Gilliam loves to make films through. Like everything, just as I said earlier, feels larger than life.
Right.
Everything, even down to like how there's just fucking vents everywhere and tubes just going all over the place. Like when they're at the restaurant and the guy is just like, what would you like to eat? And he's pointing at the menu. And
Say
he's
the
like,
number.
Say the number.
Oh,
Number
so funny.
2. Like,
So
it's just,
funny.
it's so good.
Yeah.
You know what's amazing about Terry Gilliam? He's a rule breaker, and I love how much rules we get to break. And within, you go to film school, having the 3 masters and graduating in film school. There's so many dumb rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Terry Gilliam, you get to break all those rules, and
Yeah.
you get to, and they're all justified because it's so cartoonish, it's so surreal, it's so silly, and it's so creative. And the other thing I love about this movie, and I love about real prop sets, is every shot looks like an amazing painting. And none of it makes sense.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
You look at the mother with the heel as the hat. It's so great. And then the plastic surgery, and it's almost, the movie is like, it's timeless, and it also speaks a lot about our future today. Seeing all those TV screens and everybody. I love that comment. It's like, what's playing on today? Casablanca.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so what world what age and what date are we in?
Yeah.
And this is iPhones before iPhones, right?
Seriously, though.
And
It's shockingly relevant today.
Yeah.
And then the grandmas obsessed with the plastic surgery is California today.
Oh, 100%.
And
It is the Kardashians before the Kardashians.
Oh yeah, and it just speaks in such volumes about like, I can't believe we project the future in some kind of way.
Yeah.
In older projects, but then I was watching it makes me terrified about like, what have we been saying for years? Is that going to come and happen to our future now?
Yeah.
Like, I think about so many apocalyptic end of the world movies, and I'm just wondering, are we heading that direction? I hope that because this film makes me feel like, wow, you spoke so much before it even happened.
Yeah.
And before this was even a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I watch older movies and I think about that. And I love Terry Gilliam for his juxtaposition. And you talked about that camera. My first camera that I got to work with that was gifted to me was a mini DVX 100. That skateboarder camera, and it's got a beautiful lens on it. It's a Leica lens, and my favorite thing about it was getting up close and personal. The first time I made Without a Darker Reflection when I was 18, it was all very close and personal, just like that. And the amount of getting there, it's such an independent, vulnerable way of filmmaking, and it also grabs your actors to feel really like they have to commit to it.
Yeah.
Like you're under a microscope.
Yeah.
And
every little minute facial expression is going to be so big.
And it's that, it almost feels like that fisheye too, because it's just like it's up
suffocating.
So, yeah. It's so wide but close.
Yeah. I love that.
I love it too.
You may be a rule follower out there. You want to break the rules? Send this podcast to your friends. Send it to your grandma if you really want to break the rules. If you don't want to fall into dystopian technological anarchy, send this to a friend. Although it's kind of funny we're saying that without technology, we couldn't make a podcast. I'm doing this on a phone, digital interface, all that shit. That being said, you don't want to fall into a dystopic universe, send this to a friend.
You got a plastic surgery friend? Send this to them.
Maybe
They'll
your
love
friend's
it.
got big lips.
Yeah.
And they're not real big lips. They're fake, the injected kind.
Yeah.
Send it to her, him, they, all of them. The questions. I really just have one question here. I'm not just asking this because Bob Hoskins is in this, but did anyone else get major Mario Brother vibes in some of the scenes?
Yes.
Yes. I've been dying to rewatch that movie so bad.
Yeah.
It's banned on all platforms right now still, right?
Mario Brothers?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Is it?
You
Oh,
have to
I
buy,
didn't
you have
know.
to buy the VHS or
Because-
the DVD.
Is there a DVD of it?
Very expensive.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
It's one of the most
300.
chaotic films of all time.
I love that
Yeah.
movie.
Really?
I remember going to Blockbuster with my grandma, and we picked up that movie. And here's the thing: I grew up knowing Dennis Hopper,
Yeah.
and so I grew up. Dennis Hopper lived across the street from our house, so I grew up with Henry, his son, and it was. My parents are so messed up. The first movie I ever watched my whole entire life was Aladdin at the theaters. Second movie, Blue Velvet.
Oh, God.
My parents raised me on Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks. And then the
Yeah.
third movie I watched, guess what it was? Gummo.
Oh, my God.
And so I was permanently traumatized by
Yeah.
6, 7. And then it was just weird saying like, "Mommy, baby wants to fuck," and then running into Dennis in real life and being like,
Yeah.
"Wow, okay, that's your dad, right?" And it's just like, and my family was always so artistic, and so it was really easy to quickly adapt to and be exposed to a lot of that stuff. So I that's the other reason why I love that Mario movie.
Yeah.
And everyone says it's such a shit film, and I haven't seen it, but when I was a kid, I watched it 500 times.
Yeah.
I thought it was so cool and fun and creative, and I love all the actors in that movie.
I've still never seen it.
Oh,
I might have to grab myself a VCR and try to find it.
Yeah. Well, Hopper fell, unfortunately, and I don't know if it was like a Nick Cage thing with the IRS or whatever, but he became, like, he did Wicked Prayer. But for me, he's always been the journalist in Apocalypse Now, where he delivers the most incredible improv in film history, in my opinion.
Oh, yes.
That was all improv.
Oh, I know.
This stuff, and a lot of it was taken out, but him talking to Martin Sheen in the bamboo cage, that's all drug-fueled improv. And to me, when I found out, I'm like, he was just making that stuff up. He's talking about the cosmos, and he's just talking, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is one of our best actors. And then like you look, but then his filmography just takes this weird middle, this weird tanking in the middle, kind of like Cage, right? Cage got tanked in the middle, but then he came back up for air. So it's always, I have this weird relationship with Hopper.
Me too. You know what was the other one where he's on the bus for a long Keanu Reeves is on the bus.
Oh, Speed?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Woo! That movie.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to Terry Gilliam.
Back-
But it's good that we're talking about all these other things, because Terry Gilliam is that wild. He
Yeah.
opens the door for us to talk about all the other crazy things, because that's the kind of filmmaker. If you're a filmmaker and you make amazing, crazy things, it inspires you to love and appreciate other things. This is what we talk about when we're breaking rules.
Yeah.
When we get to break rules, we get to talk about Dennis Hopper. We get to talk about Nicolas Cage, other rule breakers. These are people who are really doing things that are out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And we tend to make fun of them for it.
Yeah.
We tend to think that it's silly. And it's not. It's just an art form. And when we get to appreciate an art form, it's what has ruined film and what has ruined music today is people thinking that there's a fucking formula.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's no such thing as a formula. Oh, let's figure out what the formula, especially living in Nashville, working with all the music people for music videos. Like, well, what's the formula about like getting a real good hit?
Yeah.
What's the hook?
Yeah.
What's this? And it's just like, just listening to your talk is like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to listen to that?
Right.
Like, and it's the worst thing about record labels too, is that you think that, you think the audience actually knows what they want, and I have to tell you, most of the time the audience doesn't know what they want, and this is why I get upset about James Cameron and Christopher Nolan. I mean, I will go on for hours talking about how Oppenheimer was great, great advertisement to tell you and make you believe that this movie was that great.
Yeah.
Who in the fuck uses an IMAX movie to shoot you in a location like this?
Yeah.
You're in New Mexico, my fucking hometown,
Yeah.
on my Native American reservation, and you show no landscape shots, no landscape shots at all.
Yeah.
Like, imagine getting the phone call and being all like, you're going to be in the new Christopher Nolan film as the DP. Guys, I just got the new Christopher Nolan film. I'm going to be the DP for it. It's like, congratulations, that's amazing. He's like, where are you guys shooting? New Mexico. Oh my God, that's brilliant. You're going to have so much fun. Get on the day of the set. What are we shooting? I like this one room in here. Let's take out all the books out of the bookshelf.
Even the one time they're out in the landscapes of New Mexico, it's literally a 5-second sweeping shot, and then immediately it's nighttime and they're in a tent.
And I want to let you know, the rest of us who are in New Mexico in the film industry, we all fucking hate this film. And we all think it's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I go to Albuquerque every year because I have family there, and like I land, I'm just like overwhelmed by it. Like when you even just looking out the airport window when you land, you're like, holy shit, this is vast.
Yeah.
And what a great marketing scheme and a really great marketing tactic to be like, oh, let's just hang on the coattails of Barbie.
Yeah.
It's just like, let's save budget. Let's save budget and just say, let's call it Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
We can save more budget and then pay more people to give us great reviews. Just like what James Cameron does for every single one of his films. And we start to think that this is what I mean by, sometimes your audience doesn't know what they want, and they'll go and say, like, they have to be told to like something.
Yeah.
Which is always strange for us artists and filmmakers, because we have to kind of push the envelope. And then there's some filmmakers who are just like, well, no, this is what works. This is what sells.
Yeah.
I was like, if you're going into filmmaking just to make money, then I don't want to watch your movie.
Yeah.
I really don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I got into this to be challenged. All of my movies are very challenging, Without a Darker Reflection is about a guy stuck in a house full of mirrors. You can't take it because it's copyrighted, by the way. It's about a guy stuck in a house full of mirrors, and he believes without reflection we cannot exist, because he believes that God is the big black empty space, the universe. And he thinks that, because God doesn't have a reflection, he wants to go down and kill people. And so what ends up happening is that he becomes closer to his subconscious, and all these characters he ends up developing are parts of his subconscious coming to visit. And the closer he gets to his subconscious characters, his mirrors start to disappear. And then he has to travel through his own subconscious to find all of the mirrors, to realize that if no one ever knows him, maybe he doesn't really exist. And this kind of formula, in Without a Darker Reflection, when Vincent mirrors go missing, and he has to go through that whole entire thing, is so fucking Terry Gilliam.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. I'm watching the rising action and the downfall, and I'm like, that's where I got a lot of this from, was how brilliant, how beautiful. I love the scene when all the papers start trapping Robert De Niro.
Oh, that's such a good moment.
I got a tear in my eye.
It was heartbreaking.
So
Even though it was appearance wise, it was comedic.
Yeah.
Because it's papers, but you get it by that point in the movie, but also heartbreaking because he's our one hero. He's our one source of light. He's the only antithesis here in a system.
There's so much,
and I love how that there. I don't know how many films did it before that we get to see the two endings, right?
Right.
The happy ending and the sad ending.
Which actually leads me to my question. I have one question for this. Where do you think the psychosis actually begins? Because the obvious answer is the psychosis begins the moment he gets in the torture chair. But I could see a very strong argument being made that the entire film is him in the psychosis. That everything that happens is him and his brain trying to reconcile what's about to happen to him.
Yeah.
So where do you think the psychosis began?
Oh, God, that I asked myself that several times during the movie, and the way that Terry Gilliam. So, by the way, one of the best commentaries ever. It was such a good commentary. It actually
You're
enhanced.
welcome for finding that on YouTube.
Thank
by the
you.
way,
Because I went out and found an overpriced Blu-ray that said it had the commentary and didn't. Which pissed me off because I'm obsessed with commentaries. But he talks about it, and to him, that's the victory moment where he sees the ending as a victory. Where even though they took his body, he died, and he died and moved on in his imagination and in his dreaming. And he sees that as his final victory, even though the system technically wins by killing him and torturing him. He dies and he's in his dream permanently.
Yeah.
And so that to me speaks that probably is the moment. But I think to me, I'll just anecdotally answer from my perspective as a dreaming person.
Yeah.
I think the system probably would, if they looked at him at any given time during a movie, they would say he's in a state of psychosis. They would diagnose him as that because he's disinterested in the thing that we should all care about, which is the system.
Yeah.
But his dreaming is what sets him apart. And so I think he's, oh God, it's really hard to answer. Like, I think the system would say he's in psychosis, but I do think there's a clear moment where the chair wins, and that's where he's permanently in it. Yeah. That's just my own perspective. It's hard though. Yeah. Especially because the imagery is so out of this world.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's where I'm like, I think it is very open to interpretation, even though there is the obvious, like, in story kind of answer. But like you said, you could kind of look at the whole thing as his psychosis.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid and I heard the term, your life flashes before your eyes before you die. Yeah. And then I said, so does that mean that we're living in a loop?
Yeah.
Because like once you die at the end of that flash, it just starts over and over and over again. But I love this idea that, that surrealism and dreams and meditation. David Lynch talks about, meditation in these ideas, and you have to go fishing for them. And it's so beautiful how they come later. And that's, as a musician, I say that I don't write songs write themselves, and stories will be told when they're ready. And in order for you to be a good writer for music or filmmaking or script writing, you have to go out and experience the life.
Yeah.
And you have to go out and just go through it. When you're in a terrible relationship with someone or you're in love with someone, I remember, I don't know how many people agree with me on this, but when you're in a relationship with someone, it's really hard to write the love song for them.
It is. It really is.
And you can't write the love song until it's gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And because you're so in it, and then once it ends, that's the story that will be told later. And I always think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Randos.
Mind if I do the first one?
Please.
The original title for this movie was 1984 and a half, because it was supposed to be released in 1984, but then as post-production delays forced it to be released in 1985, he decided to change the name to Brazil simply because of the one song.
Yeah.
Like there's no other reason it is called Brazil other than he needed to change the title and decided to go with the song.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always loved that because when I was younger, when I was first making video art pieces from like 11 to 14, because I grew up in Venice, Italy, seeing Bill Viola, Chris Cunningham, and going to the La Biennale and watching all these really incredible video artists. I always thought his film is naming like a kid. And so I would name like one of my films called like Vantex, or it'd be like Vanakarushigami or something like that. And I'm dyslexic, so I don't know how to spell. And I didn't know how to read and write until I was 14. And so having to just like type things in my own dyslexic world, I love when you can just name a movie.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a movie can just have its own name without having to do with the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always love the titles for some of my films, like Attempts to Cure, The Beginnings of My Heart, Without a Darker Reflection.
Yeah.
It
definitely doesn't have to correlate. There is this weird like preface that we have to, like, the names of things have to correlate.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
Like one of my friends, James, I played Warped Tour with him back in 2015, and the year before he was presenting at a Comic-Con about writing, both songwriting and novel writing, because he wrote a novel trilogy. And someone was asking about how he names his songs, and he was just like, well, here's the fun thing, because he does punk rock. He was like, the fun thing with punk rock is sometimes you don't even have to write the name of the song about the song at all. Like, I could just write a song right now and come up with a title called How Bob Barker Killed My Ex-Girlfriend's Dog.
Yeah.
And then he finishes the session, and his little brother comes up and he's like, you have to write this song now.
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, I do. And he wrote it, and I ended up helping him write some of the music to it, and it is a fucking banger of a song. But it has absolutely nothing to do with the title. It's just a funny ass title for this really insanely deep song about not even someone like ghosting him, but like losing a relationship without even realizing you've lost it until it's completely gone.
Love that.
Yeah, that's something as you said, I absolutely love having that juxtaposition of let's have a really crazy ass title that has nothing to do with anything else and see what people think when they go into it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Next rando. That was a good one, by the way.
Thank you.
Especially because we live in a time period where I hear people from both political parties saying everything is Orwellian all the time. I'm like, my God, it's like, pick a different book.
Yeah.
It's like, God, this is like, everything is so Goosebumps right now. This is so R.L. Stein. Orwell would be rolling.
It's so Narnia.
This is so Narnia. Originally, the opening of this movie, and they didn't have budget for it, but what Gilliam wanted was he wanted a beetle in a forest, and they wanted to follow the beetle in a tree getting cut down, and like you're starting to see papers flying around, and the papers are coming from the city, and that they were going to flow into the city, and the irony was going to be that this tree was going to go into a factory and be turned into the paper, and that the bug would be squashed on the piece of paper in the process of making paper. And so there was this whole
cool.
Yeah, but they just had no idea how to do it, and they didn't have budget for it.
I know Terry Gilliam's imagination is always having to be cut over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
He has the wildest ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that happens because he was an animator first.
Yeah.
And I think those are the things that translating that And I'm an animator too, and that's why I always end up. I mean, this is why I love him so much, because I think I relate with him way too much in the sense that about time my dad starts calling me. Been trying to get a hold of him all week. Is that he? Because I started off doing animation, stop motion animation, so I didn't know how to reality make the movie with the mirrors or a girl's heart exploding and her trying to find all the pieces again. And it's always, we're asking way too much. And with Terry Gilliam, I think that what I love about the movie too is with the papers, it's so ahead of its time once again.
Oh
yeah.
It's so defined by papers all the time these days. I know, because like my ex-wife and I, she's Ukrainian, so having to deal with us traveling to Barcelona and other places, it's like we've been defined by papers so much. We don't even have freedom sometimes because of the amount of papers that we have to get defined by.
Yeah.
And, especially, rent or being defined by bills, being defined by if we have to pay for electricity and bills and, all that stuff. I was like, hey, you want to go out tonight? I can't. I got to pay for fucking electricity.
Yeah.
I got to pay for Wi-Fi. I got to pay for all this
I got to
stuff.
pay for heat.
Yeah.
And then I living in Chicago, oh my goodness. When you try to get your ID or your passport or anything done, it's like, I love that one scene. It's like, I need to make a complaint. Is it stamped?
Yeah.
I was like, already went there.
Yeah.
Don't even, you got to go back. No,
Yeah.
I remember going to get my passport and bringing all my papers. And then she's like, no. I was just like, come on, please. She's like, nope, you have to go. And I was just like, I have everything. I don't care. And I was just like, no, please don't. This is like, you have to make another appointment for next week. And I was just like, but will you look at it? No.
Oh my God.
Yep. Overly regulated. Yeah.
That happened to me every single time. And, the people at those jobs, anybody who works at that job usually always loves to tell you no.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are. It's like, they're really always willing to tell you no. And it was always heartbreaking. I was just like, oh my God, this is so frustrating. And it's heartbreaking to see people who really need to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, that's something I absolutely love about this movie is the fact that bureaucracy ultimately is the villain. Like, there is no specific person that's the villain. It is the system, and the system has been set up to make sure that anyone who even thinks outside the system fails.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that people have tried to kind of do since, but I don't think anyone has ever really portrayed it this well before.
What a beautiful way for us to bring it back to rule breaking.
Yeah.
Great time to break rules within film story structures on such a structured idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Ugh.
This is interesting. I didn't know this, but Terry Gilliam was a postal worker at one point.
Oh.
And he says the bags that they put over people's heads,
Yeah.
and those were inspired by the bags that they would tote mail around when he was a
Nice.
postal worker. Yeah, so that's why they look like that blue and that weird tone, like they're postal bags.
I love it.
So the
I love the fact that there's like these police officers with these silver hats.
Yeah.
Or there's like these army dudes, these SWAT dudes, and then this guy with like, what does he look like? He looks like the chocolate factory, the Willy Wonka, the chocolate factory dude coming in. He's just like,
Well, I love the maintenance guys with like the stupid long bills
my
on their
goodness,
hats.
I love that
like,
too.
It's just, again, all of it is so absurd, but none of it feels out of place.
here's your receipt.
Yeah.
He said too that like in the commentary there are countries that he would travel to, and this is where he got the idea where like if you got arrested, like those governments, like whether or not they were good or bad governments, like there were just countries like randomly that would charge people for getting arrested.
Yeah.
Like they would charge the money because they felt like you're the nuisance on society. You need to pay for it.
Yep.
And so that's why he put it in here.
I love it. That one scene where Robert De Niro switches the sewage into the guy's oxygen.
Yes.
And his entire suit
yeah.
just fills up with shit.
oh,
Yeah.
that was pretty.
And he's
Oh
just
my
got that
God.
little cigar. He's
Yeah.
just like,
So good.
Yeah. You talked about plastic surgery earlier. Gilliam hates plastic surgeons. He has a very legit story about this. His dad got. I mean, Gilliam was how old when he made this? Probably in his 40s or something.
Yeah.
His dad. So you take his age and do the math. His dad got whatever the earliest version of plastic surgery was because he had like an ear issue. But he says in a commentary at the time there were two kinds of surgeons because it was still like a very new thing.
Yeah.
There were acid men and there were cutting men.
Yeah.
And that's what they called them, acid men and cutting men. So either they used acid, and they used acid on his dad and permanently maimed his ear.
Oh my God.
And so he said for his whole life he hated plastic surgeons. So that's why he like a lot of this was a critique of the because in the 80s is when plastic surgery really started to like become a thing, especially in like Hollywood. And so he wanted this to be an open critique of that because he actually saw it, how it affected his dad when he was young. So
that image of Sam hitting the casket and the woman's body just gelatinized, just falling out, is just, that has stuck with me since the day I first saw this movie when I was like 16. Like it's such a powerful image of like, stop trying to fuck yourself up because you want to look prettier. Just accept the body that you've been given and try to take care of that.
Yep.
Man, well said. It's we love talking about the casket part because that was the minute I realized how much it reminded me of Without a Darker Reflection. And there's a scene when Vincent, we didn't put it in the script, but there was a scene where Vincent walks into a room and there's a party happening. And this is so Terry Gilliam. There's a party happening, and Vincent walks into the room trying to find his mirrors, and he's looking around, and right underneath the party, there's a casket. And he's buried under the casket, and everybody is just dancing above him. And this is kind of a symbolism of showing that nobody knows he really exists.
Yeah.
Once again, Vincent's going through this episodic moment of through his subconscious. Am I really alive? I mean, because like being in the house full of mirrors, he believes without reflection he cannot exist. And so he's obsessed with looking at himself. But then if he's the only one that's seen himself, then how does he know that anybody else is around? That's why everybody's having a party and having a good time. It's like, why don't you know I'm here? Why don't you?
Yeah.
Know and it's so like, I'm like, man, I think I'm so unique and original. And then I see Terry Gilliam. I was like, I just grew up with a lot of David Lynch and Terry Gilliam, and I love. I'm so grateful for them. And like, it's so funny because like I hear us talking about the movie we talked about before, and I could give you more distinctive criticism, but when it comes to this movie, it's always like, no, I just love you. I appreciate you. Like I really got nothing but to say. Like I could talk about other things, but you, on the other hand, it's like you're. I compared Terry Gilliam to being like this beautiful girl who you're in love with, and you're like, you're just perfect. No, you're okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. Terry Gilliam is this gorgeous woman that I just love. You're my Emma Watson.
That's actually a great parlay into the next rando, believe it or not.
Hell yeah.
Because people, when it came out, so Gilliam gets frustrated when he says now people talk about this movie like it's some kind of like meaningful masterpiece, but he says massive amounts of people walked out of the theater when it first started. And when they were also not just during test screenings, but when it actually came out in theaters, people would just walk out in droves. He said it. So he was quoted, says, what people don't remember is half the audience would walk out. Now it's held as a classic, blah, 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 bullshit. They were walking out. That's his quote.
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, I mean, people hate change.
Yeah.
People hate change so much. And it's the same thing with our government. Like I make this joke about us moving to electric cars. And you guys are comedians, so you guys will get this. It's like the time when they're all sitting in the meeting. It's like, we're moving to gas. Oh, hell no, we're not. We're going to stick to coal. I was like, but your brother just died in the coal mine. You know what? He died a hard worker.
He put food on the table.
Keep mining coal in his honor.
That's right. I really like coal. We're not going to move to this gas shit.
Yeah.
Fuck you and your
gas explodes.
Gas explodes. Coal's, we're sticking with coal. And
it's reliable.
Like, it's the same thing what's going on right now. Fuck electric.
Yeah.
I don't want. What, you're going to shut down my car? You're going to shut down my car because I don't pay for it?
Yeah.
Listen, with gas, I can be like fucking Mad Max. You can't have electric cars and Mad Max, can you? It's so ridiculous with the change. People hate change so much, and because we work so hard. We work so hard every single day. We work at a coffee shop, we work at a bank, we work at films, we work in music, we work at anything that we do. We work at the grocery store, and all we want to do when we buy a movie ticket, and this is for me working at a movie theater sweeping up popcorn, is when you buy a movie ticket and spend $16 or $30, you just want to relax and enjoy a fun, good time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so when you're challenged at the movie theater, you're like, fuck you.
Yeah. Gilliam's
then-
like, woo.
Well, it's
yeah,
like-
and that's the thing. I just wasted my money.
Yeah.
And it's and that's and like, I can't believe, everybody hated Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Everybody was just like, yeah, fuck that movie. That movie sucks. And then like didn't come popular until years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think it also,
Yeah, go
like
ahead.
like you said, when it comes to formulas, the Tarantino is very famous recently for talking about how he thinks like the 50s and the 80s were kind of shit decades for film because everything fell into the basic formula of how do you make a hit movie.
Mhm.
And this steps so far outside of what else was coming out at the time.
In the 80s specifically.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it just made people uncomfortable by how out of the box it was compared to everything else that would have been in theaters at the time.
It was like the era of cocaine-fueled buddy cop comedies.
Yeah.
And then like movies that went off the like Harold Ramis movies that went off the rails halfway.
Or like low
because
budget sci-fi
Yeah.
movies. Like, yeah, and this
It's a think
as we
piece.
said, every single frame of this movie is a painting in and of itself. And when you're just used to B grade sci-fi or whatever else, and you see something like this, you don't know what to do with it.
Mhm.
we need to understand venues and be a little bit more respectful to them. I realize that as a musician. And I think that like we should make artsy films and put them in independent movie theaters like the Belcourt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you're going into film to make a lot of money, then I don't care to watch it.
Yeah.
And there's
Mhm.
like I don't consider Transformers, Michael Bay's Transformers, film. It's not
Yeah.
art. I mean,
Yeah.
like that was my first exposure to saying this is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
This is
Mhm.
entertainment,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
that's okay. If you want to go have fun, or if you want to go see Fast and Furious and try to convince me that those movies are artistic,
Drew Davis.
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people who try. I know a lot of filmmakers who try to convince me, oh no, those are brilliant
Yeah.
artistic
Mhm.
films. And I was just like, cool, man. And and so I think that's the thing is that like, and it's so funny because I was thinking about that my girlfriend showing me that '70s show, and I've never seen it before, and
It's fun.
yeah, it's fun, and there's certain humors to it, and I think that we don't have to force people to like certain things. Like I remember growing up in high school, and I remember like there was these really dude jokes.
Yeah.
Like like this is such a dude joke, and they would get mad at you. It was like, why didn't you find that fucking funny, dude?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you find that funny? I was like, I just didn't get the joke, bro. And it's just like, and it's only because like I tend to more I'm not that big of a dude,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I grew up with a very I grew up with my mom and loving female things. I
Mhm.
loved a lot of, all my heroes, Bjork, Joan Jett,
Mm.
Blondie, all of them, so many incredible women, Miyazaki's female characters.
Yeah.
I'm so gravitated towards feminine things. So it's always like, it's interesting when I was sat around with a bunch of dudes and was like, what about this, bro?
Yeah.
And I was just
Yeah.
like,
Dicks.
you know what? I'm not pushing my favorite things onto you.
Yeah.
I don't go and tell you, it's like, what's fucking wrong with you? You don't like anime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, an anime is not cool in our generation. It was just like,
Yeah.
fucking cartoons.
Yeah, you
It's
were
not
you were the nerd if you were
Shit,
watching
man.
Pokemon. Like, yeah.
This last rando is sorry. Yeah, this is
No,
amazing. Just
yeah.
keeping us streamlined here.
Yeah, no
This is
problem.
amazing though. My favorite rando that I discovered, Terry Gilliam. So the girl that says, "I won't look at your willy," that thing.
Yeah.
That was Terry Gilliam's daughter. She was 3 years old. Her name was Holly. And Holly, so she hated to be on camera. He was like so shocked, like he's a filmmaker, and
Yeah.
like she did not want to do any of it. And so she got so mad because they couldn't get her to do it. So she goes to a back room on set, cuts her hair off with scissors so that they won't put her back on camera. Gilliam puts her back on anyway, and so the only way they got her to say the line was he asked the entire crew to leave, and it was just him behind the camera and her,
Aw.
and so that was the only way he captured it. But she literally cut her own hair so they wouldn't put her back on camera. She hated it.
I love it.
Hilarious.
I just can't imagine being Terry Gilliam's child.
Can you imagine
No,
any
yeah.
other circumstance where like you're an accountant and you bring your kid to work and you're just like, do accountant stuff? And
Add.
it's like, no,
Just add
I don't wanna.
return on investment now.
Oh man, Terry Gilliam is such a weirdo.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking at his filmography. What was it? I love so many of his films. There's only one film I absolutely despise and hate. It's Tideland.
I haven't seen that one either.
It's the only one that I think that is disrespectful to life, and I
Interesting.
think it's too morbid, and
Mhm.
I think that he crosses the line. And I think these are the moments. I think this shows. What I understand from Lost in La Mancha with Terry Gilliam is that he doesn't know reality, and he's so stuck in his own creative, monstrous, incredible world that sometimes I think he goes a little too far.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes he needs some people to limit him.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay. I think I work with a lot of directors as a DP, and sometimes what I've learned from directors, independent directors, most of the time is they lose themselves with that much power. I remember when we worked together, I had to stay close to my vision.
Yeah.
With directing, and I said I can't lose what's important.
Yeah.
And I had to stay focused, and you know there were moments Gethin wanted to challenge me, and I was so always happy when he asked me a question. I knew exactly what to say.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is how it is, and right there. The only thing about being a director for me was I guess the crew always asked me, was like, are you mad at me? Because like my face was like this the whole entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like very serious. And it was
You're just like, no, I'm just mad at this one guy.
Yeah, no. And the thing is that when you're a director, it's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
It is so insane. You get
Yeah.
you get a bunch of money, and you're in charge. You're a king. And I think Terry Gilliam gets lost in his kingdom.
Yeah.
And I think he thinks that he can just. And I've seen directors lose it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I want this and this and this. Why can't you give it to me?
Yeah.
This is my vision.
Yeah.
This is my story. Me, I. And it's like, hey, is this about you or is it about the movie?
Yeah.
Because if that's what it is, then let's put the cameras on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if this is what you really want.
Well, if I absorbed anything from the commentary, like where a lot of directors are trying to insert a message or posture with a certain message, whether it be political or socioeconomic, whatever the messaging is, the things that Gilliam believes, he believes. The words that came to mind after I watched it with the commentary was like, Gilliam is a true believer in terms of that, like the things that he's espousing in this movie are things that and I wrote this down in my notes. They stem from his core belief system.
Yeah.
He's not posturing for Hollywood. He's not trying to like what Simon said on our interview when he talked about like all the people that would like talk about who to vote for or what your family values are. These were people that were also in brothels with sex trafficked people.
Yeah.
Like there's just this Hollywood thing. And you kind of touched on earlier, Hollywood's a demented place. But Gilliam, I don't know him personally. I don't know if he's a demented person or not, but he believes the shit in this movie stems from a core belief. So I don't even know if it's necessarily a core creative thing with him as much as there's an inherent nihilism that he has he projects onto his work.
Yeah.
Every minute that you said all of that, I was just looking up and I was like, man, you're so cool. Because it's punk rock to me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm such a punk rocker. And I just like, I love how punk rock that is.
Yeah.
And I just think that's super cool.
Yeah.
I'm constantly speechless in this interview compared to the other one. I'm just like, I don't know what to say. Once again, Terry Gilliam, you're this beautiful, sexy person.
That's amazing.
I think for me, I've always had the view, whether I've been directing something or working on a film for someone else, I'm just like, y'all, we're basically just getting paid to make believe.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we can make cool shit that might change someone's mind or view one day, but it's like ultimately we're making believe. Like we get paid to do what kids just want to do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, have your vision, stay true to yourself, but also just understand we're making something that doesn't exist. Like have fun with it. Don't yell at people because you want to have the power when you're making something up. Like, calm down, people.
It's beautiful you mentioned that. The reason why I love Terry Gilliam so much is because I'm not a big fan. I remember when I was first, I always wanted to be a filmmaker since as long as I can remember, and I don't do it that much anymore. But the thing is that I grew up with a really, really hard life.
Mm.
Being Native American, growing up on the reservation, every month I had a family member that died.
Mm.
And I grew up seeing a lot of people die in my life. And I grew up seeing a lot of alcoholism, drug addicts. My grandpa was murdered. My auntie jumped in front of a train. My other cousin, killed himself. And then, Spanish people used to shoot Native Americans in Taos and, got spit on and treated with tons of racism. And it was nice to see Terry Gilliam believe in such trauma and such hard work because, with paperwork and not having your freedom, it is really painful and it's really difficult for a lot of people out there to not have that certain type of freedom. I've been lucky enough to get a passport and travel around the world since I was a kid and have that. But for some people, living in a state in America, never being able to see California, New York, or anything, and just being stuck in their own hometown their whole entire life, it hurts. And for Terry Gilliam to use such a creative way of grabbing things, and maybe that's goes back to me saying I didn't appreciate him making fun of the Spanish Inquisitions, but maybe that's what he believes in, and maybe that's his way of healing through it. And he uses humor, he uses imagination to really talk about the things that we should be talking about, the things that really do matter. And I've taken that, like Without a Darker Reflection started from having 360 zits on both sides of my face. And I remember being in boarding school and I had a crush on a girl and I smiled and my zit popped on her face. And there was white blood pus all over her face. And it was fucking embarrassing. I just cried. And I used to look in the mirror, and every time I was so afraid of looking at mirrors, and I didn't want to see mirrors again. And I would cry 8 hours a day. And, within meditation and inspired by David Lynch and Terry Gilliam, it gave me a better way to write a movie that could be changed differently. Yeah. And I really owe it a lot to the imagination of somebody like this. I don't know him personally or whatever he's going through, but I'm always tremendously grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think as comedians, that's something that we've all had to learn is, sometimes there is such a thing as too soon. And then other times you go through something horrific. My dad literally almost died last weekend. Had a torn aorta, had to go to the hospital, was literally helicoptered from one hospital to another because they were like, we cannot risk you dying in traffic. And I called my mom. All we knew is he was going under, and there was a 50 to 75% chance that he lives. And we're just talking, and I'm just like, how are you doing, Mom? And she's just like, I cannot have him die. He knows how to invest all the money. I don't want to put everything in mutual funds. What the hell? And that's it was just a moment that we could both have a moment of levity in this insanely serious moment that we were both going through of not knowing what was going to happen. And we just had to make each other laugh so that we could get through it together. And I think that's definitely something I see within a lot of his art, is not even finding the humor in it, but finding the absurdity in life and in the potential outcome of things like this dystopian sci-fi that we're looking at.
And that's what makes a really great filmmaker, in my opinion, is that our last discussion, we just really talked about the film. Yeah. And then this discussion, we're really actually talking about a movie that inspires more of a dialogue and conversation about our own personal lives. Yeah. About things that are going on, and it becomes beyond the film. Yeah. Yeah. And that's really incredible art to me, is when you could have our conversations that are not just purely about this one film. This Brazil and Terry Gilliam as an artist himself has inspired different dialogues for us to go deeper within who we are. Yeah. And analyze our own perspectives and how we relate with the world that we exist in and are in, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to like. This is a really great, intense, real conversation. And I'm trying to like. I'm trying to like.
No, go
I'm trying to like find a way to get us into the work hour. Usually I make a joke here, but I'm like, wow, I'm really enjoying this real shit. This is real shit.
Are we ready to fill the
void?
breed suits with shit?
Are we ready to fill the void, the nihilism?
Are we ready to fall into the void of a casket?
Are we ready to get Orwellian?
Are we ready to get plastic surgery? Let's go.
Actually, let's get stamped.
Yes.
Let's get stamped. Let's
Yes.
clean our desk because a clean desk is an efficient desk.
It's true.
Let's go. Let's war. Our categories are, so I want to say the broader quote first because you told me, you're right, I should cut it down. But my favorite quote from this movie was, like, and this happens several times. They're literally in the middle, like they don't catch Sam and they don't catch Jill and they're mad. But in the middle of it, they remind them, like, remember, a clean desk is an efficient desk. And it's like, even in the middle of chaos, they're like, we have to remember the rules.
Yeah.
But clean desk is, yes, affirmative. And then negative is central services.
There we go.
So we got to call central services. Seriously, those guys were like Mario and Luigi. It's
So good.
Totally.
amazing. All right, here we go. Top bill cast. And I did want to say this was a rando I had, but and I didn't have time for it. But Jonathan Pryce, Kim Greist, and Robert De Niro. De Niro was really nervous about doing this movie because up until then, this was Robert
So
De Niro from
surprised.
Godfather 2.
Yeah.
He'd never done what he called, Gilliam calls it a bit part, but a supporting part. He had carried every movie he'd been in, Taxi Driver, Godfather 2. And here, I mean, yeah, he's prevalent, but he's not like in it a lot. And
It's
so,
still such a random. I
Yeah.
always forget he's in it, and then he pops up. I'm like, oh yeah.
So what do we think about this top bill cast?
I mean, I think I can guess where all of this is going to go for all of us. I think that everyone just did such a fucking great job. I've said this with the last film. I think every single actor brought 100% or more to whatever they were doing in this film. Everyone took the absurdity and treated it with the proper gravitas and as seriously as they could, while still letting the humor and the absurdity speak through it. So it's a clean desk for me.
Love it.
Clean desk, but I was so surprised. I was like, "Is that Robert De Niro?"
Yeah.
And I was just like, and it's been a while since I've seen the movie. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, Robert De Niro!" And he does such a good job.
It's so
Yeah.
cool.
It's so good.
He's great.
And what's really funny is that the lead actor, I can't stand him.
Yeah.
Jonathan Pryce.
Oh, Jonathan Pryce, he drives me nuts, especially in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'd be really happy if we didn't have him cast. He does a great job in Game of Thrones.
Oh, he does.
He does a great job. But, I just can't wait to see him die. I've never liked his acting, and I don't like his face. And it is a personal thing, and it's terrible because he's talented.
He's
And
very
I'm just-
talented.
He's very talented. I get so annoyed, and like I loved him in this movie.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved him in this movie, and he's very brilliant. I don't know. It sounds like a personal problem.
Yeah.
It is. It's a lame personal problem.
But it's not enough to give you central
Central
services.
services.
You're going
Oh
clean
man,
desk.
it's a clean
Yeah.
desk. Everybody was brilliant. I also loved
Yeah.
the plastic surgeon guy from Harry Potter. What's his name?
Oh, Jim Broadbent.
Oh yeah.
So good.
Oh, so
where
good.
he
He's
pops up
great.
is just, it's always fun for me. Whenever I see any British influenced film, I'm like, he's going to be there somewhere.
Yeah.
Where's he going to be?
Yeah, I went clean desk too, and I noticed this with a lot of the films. Even though I don't love the film Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas because it's actually my favorite novel of all time.
Love Ralph Steadman,
Yeah,
illustrator.
yeah, absolutely. But there's something weird with Gilliam. Like he manages to get all of his films have a certain level of hyperbole. Lynch has this too, like the acting, the way it's written. Like there's hyperbole kind of just built in. I don't know how, but all of the actors in, I would say, 12 Monkeys, Fear and Loathing, this film, like they buy in.
Yeah.
And they're also bought in. Like I think about the mom with the plastic surgery and the waiter, even the side characters, and we'll get into supporting cast, but everyone is like in.
Yeah.
And there's nothing lacks here. And I don't know how he does it because it's actually pretty amazing because you'll see even when we just talked about Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. Like, yeah, there's a lot of great performance, but it's like there's an occasional side character, supporting actor, like, that was okay.
Yeah.
Here, everyone is just in.
Yeah. Everyone buys the vision 100%.
Total clean desk for me.
Yeah.
Supporting cast. Katherine Hellman is Dr. Ida Lowry. Ian Holm is Mr. Kurtzman. Bob Hoskins as Spore. And Michael Palin as Jack Lint. There's a lot of them here, but there's Jim Broadbent, Dr. Jaffe. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else. We'll stop there. What do you think?
As we just said with the top build cast, like again, everyone is 100% in. There, not a single person phoned in any performance, and I don't even know how many takes things took, or how like meticulous Terry Gilliam is with stuff like that. But it's like, I feel like in this movie especially, if he tells someone to do it, they just get it and they just do it exactly the way that he's asked for. It just, not a single person stands out. Everyone buys the absurdity and sells it so hard.
Love
so
it.
it's a clean desk for me.
You know, I mean, I was gonna say also, how can you fuck it up with camp acting too?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
I make jokes about Wes Anderson these days. I love Wes Anderson's earlier work, but Wes Anderson these days, if I was an actor and my agent called me and said, "You're gonna be the next Wes Anderson film," I was like,
Yeah.
I was just like, you know, because like, and what I mean by that is just like, it's so monotone and they're so robots. Like I get more emotion from Chat GBT responding to me than a Wes Anderson being like, it's just like, my mother just died. Lights up the cigarette.
Yeah.
Wanna fuck?
Or if you're Edward
Sure.
Norton, doesn't light the cigarette and just puts it in his mouth.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just like, how was the sex? Good.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm sorry I couldn't pleasure you because my dad doesn't talk to me.
Yeah.
Rich people problems. You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
it's gotten to a point of like being such like high rich people problems
Yeah.
that it's just like,
It's almost a parody of itself now.
yeah, and it's a formula. And then
Yeah.
like with camp, I mean, I grew up in the 90s. I love camp.
Mhm.
The other person who's my other hero is John Waters.
Mhm.
And when you get to have camp acting, it's just exciting. It's so fun. It's filled. I don't want it all the time. But I'm glad we have it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm glad that we get to see, because that's when all little tiny minor characters, like we said, just say number 2, say number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's so necessary. It goes back to the other conversation I said, give people character and purpose. Make your other characters excited to be in your movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is something the Coens do really well, too. I talk about this all the time, but they spend more time making side characters memorable. And Gilliam does that here, too. And I do think, too, the camp acting is interesting because I think it has a purpose, not only just in acting, but in the film. To live in this system, you have to portray a certain level of detachment from yourself and from your soul, because you're, you know, dreaming is looked down upon. It's out of the norm. So these people are just acting in a way where a detached individual would. And it's pretty amazing that even down to the lowest level, supporting actor here, we're seeing a pretty consistent hyperbolic detachment camp that buys into the messaging of the film. So this is a big clean desk for me as well.
Yeah.
I love what you said, that dreaming is frowned upon.
Yeah.
Especially for this movie. That's beautifully said.
I love that transition where he's just like, I don't have hopes and especially dreams. And then it cuts right to his dream sequence.
On top of all the broken systems too, like the toaster. Probably the funniest thing in this movie is that damn toaster that gets the toast wet.
Yeah.
But that's the funny thing though, because that's really what it would be like. Like we're going to be forced to buy into the system, but the system is broken, and it's just like, but we're supposed to pretend like it's not.
Yeah.
And all the machines don't work, and this advanced technology breaks all the time, and it's just like, but we got to buy in.
Yeah.
And we got to be detached.
Yeah.
So, very powerful message. Writing, Terry Gilliam.
Yeah. Fucking insane. It's just, I mean, I can't, we've said it all at this point. Like, it's just, it's so well done. He just leans into the absurdism 110%. And it makes you buy this make-believe world that also feels weirdly familiar. And it's like, I just, I don't know. I can't say anything else. It's a clean desk for me. It's fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah.
You and me in this episode were just like,
Yeah.
you know?
She's so hot.
I need to say something really negative at some point just to kind of balance it out here. The Emerald Couch.
Her tits could have been better. Okay.
What it is once again, it's rule breaking.
Yeah.
And for you to, you know, your downfall, that he invented a different kind of story structure and in downfall. And I definitely, I think I steal it, or I was influenced a lot by it. And I love the downfall of how everything goes so subconsciously chaotic in its own kind of way. And I think I think David Lynch follows a similar kind of one that's, I think David Lynch does the same formula too. Like when you watch Mulholland Drive, towards their downfalls, it's just crazy. The homeless person, the small little mini older people chasing you and having sex with this ghost or not in Mulholland Drive is just insane. So I think that's what I'm really attracted to is inventing different formula structures, and I praise them for that because it's we learn the rules to break the rules, and it's such the cleanest desk that I could find.
The cleanest of desks.
Let's just take a moment and admire my favorite line from this whole movie, where she's just like, "Want to try some necrophilia?"
Yes.
So fucking good. Oh my god.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I do give this a clean desk, is there's an intertwining of humor but real life like messaging, and almost this kind of like crystal ball look into what life could look like if we continue down the technological road that we are on. Yeah. But it also somehow never takes itself that seriously.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because Gilliam, when I hear him talk, he sounds like a serious guy. Like he really believes it.
Yeah.
And he's really into it. But the way this is portrayed, it's almost a humorous but real look. And I think the balance is great. Like it never veers so far on one side that I'm like, all right, whatever. There are some transitional periods in the film, and I'll get more into it in the next category. I do give it a clean desk. There are moments where it transitions to the dreams, though, with the samurai and stuff, where I am like having to readjust and recalibrate. Because again, I kind of went into this cold turkey. I kind of read the summary, but didn't do any research or anything. And I was kind of like, when he starts to fly and he's got his wings and all the stuff, I'm like, okay, wait a second. Okay. But once I readjusted, I was good. But there definitely was some calibration along the way.
Yeah.
But I do think it was meant to be disorienting.
Oh, definitely.
So I do respect it. But at first I was kind of like, okay, what's that? Okay, I get it now. I see what we're doing. This is a Gilliam film. I see what we're doing.
Yeah.
So good stuff. It is 3. Actually, it's what? It is, 3-0.
Yeah.
What's in front of us? Cinematography, production,
skip directing?
design. We just did. Oh, wait, we did write. God, sorry.
He did write and direct.
We did write. It's because he did both. All right, directing.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think everything we just said for writing can be attributed to directing. Like, he had such a clear vision, and he made sure everyone followed it to the letter, and it's wonderful. So yeah, clean desk.
Love it.
Yeah.
Total genius.
Domination.
Really great.
Yeah.
Total.
I would never want to work with him.
Yeah.
I'd never want to be on that film set.
Yeah.
I would want to be a fly on the wall, like far away, just looking in and nothing.
I would love to be the executive producer and be like, pop my head and say like, "This is great. How much more money do you need?"
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to imagine, I give this a clean desk for an external reason. External to the film is like, I'm just trying to imagine making this movie in the middle of the 80s, where like Caddyshack, which I like comedies. I like Caddyshack. I love Fletch. Those are some of my favorite comedies. But cocaine-fueled comedies and Beverly Hills Cop and buddy cop movies are becoming prevalent, and Hollywood is literally running on cocaine during this era. And people are literally like just giving up halfway through the script and going, you know what, let's snort some coke and make some shit up. That's kind of like how movies were made during this time. But here, there's such a hyper focus. It's a brave message. We're coming out of I can't remember, like there's, we got a recession looming in the 80s here. And there's a lot of weird, interesting cultural things happening for this film to come out.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool. It's brave. I think it's hilarious. People were walking out of it because,
I mean, like I said earlier, it just makes sense because it's so far outside of everything else that was happening at the time.
And I just love his vision. I love the closeness, even though it's uncomfortable, and I love that he did it in 12 Monkeys as well. But just like the hyper focus on discomfortable, things. So I think he's a mastermind at that, and I also give it a clean desk here.
Yeah.
So now we're at 4-0. Sorry, I skipped a category. What's in front of us? I know.
Yeah.
I know. I'm losing my edge. Cinematography, production, design, sound, costumes, editing, hand motions.
As we started this whole thing talking about the practicality of everything, especially with how absurd it all is. Like, where else are you going to watch a movie where suddenly buildings are just shooting up out of the ground, or there's so much like ducts and tubes everywhere. My absolute favorite shot of the entire movie is right near the beginning, and it's when all of those people are walking through the main office, and it's like they're crossing the camera, they're crossing in front of each other. There's a line of 10 people that all split off in different directions. The amount of rehearsal and choreography that had to go into this one 10-second shot must have been absolutely insane. So it's the cleanest of desks.
Love it.
Cleanest of desks. I mean, I love every single moment of it. It's my favorite type of style of filmmaking. I'll take this, what people would think is homemade and unprofessional and low budget looking, which I think is higher budget. And I love the way that, you know, when he's outside, there's these miniature sets that look like Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings the imagination of my innocence again.
Yeah.
And I love that you tapped into it. It feels like a home cooked meal
Yeah.
that will bring tears to my eyes rather than something that was manufactured into what I think is leading to AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. 5-0. We are just.
You didn't give your score.
Oh God, I didn't.
You didn't say shit.
Oh my God, what is my problem today? I'm like running on empty here.
Yeah.
What happened to me?
It's also interesting thinking that I wonder. We'll look back at movies like this, and we'll see how incredible it was for people to really hand make all of these sets and hand make all of this stuff, because we are heading into the world of AI, which is making us lazier.
Yeah.
And nothing's gonna end up being handmade as much as we want it to. I mean, if we went to CGI because everybody said that this is gonna be. Oh, I got an important thing to. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that documentary on Miyazaki wanting to quit.
Mm-mm.
So there's an amazing documentary on Miyazaki wanting to quit, and one of the first people. There's this amazing scene inside of the documentary. Miyazaki's one of the first people to see AI.
Yeah.
And they bring his big, huge producer guy, Ghibli. It's like, Miyazaki, we heard you're into doing CGI. And, you know, Miyazaki wanted to make a CGI movie. And so he makes a CGI short movie about like a caterpillar or something like that. And he's very fascinated. He's like, oh, this is really cool. We could work with this. And then the more and more he starts to work with it, he's like, this isn't some kind of magical box that can fix anything. That's just like, when this caterpillar moves, you got to understand that, you know, when he wakes up, it's just not function. Look this way, that way. It's gotta have eyes like a baby. It's like, it needs to see the world for its first time. It needs to bring in, like, you know, and it's true. Like, Miyazaki looks at everything in life as like, you know, like when you see a baby look around and be like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's like, we need to capture that within the animation. The CGI is not doing that with the animators because they think they just plug in all these buttons. And then, you know, the hair needs to rise.
Yeah.
And there needs to be friction and vibrations. And people just think that they press all these buttons and then Caterpillar walks in.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not convincing enough. And then the guy brings in the first testing of AI. And the whole entire time, Miyazaki is complaining about how he wants to quit. His friends are dying. He's beginning depressed. He doesn't ever want to do animation again. And he sees this AI flopping around, and it's like the zombie character just flopping with no brains or function. And it looks kind of cool. It looks like a sloppy art piece. His face is so powerful. He's like, what is this? He's just like, no, the first thing he says after he sees the AI sample, he says, every day I come to work, and I've had a longtime friend who is handicapped. He's in a wheelchair, and he struggles to walk, and he struggles even to give me a simple suggestion of a high five. Him raising his hand and trying to give me a high five is all the strength and pain in the world. I've known him for a long time, and he struggled for many, many years. Whatever you're showing me, this doesn't understand pain.
Yeah.
Doesn't understand life. And what is the purpose of AI? And the producer says, to get rid of the animator.
Oh my gosh.
Fuck.
Miyazaki looks like this. And he just gets up from his chair and he leaves. He goes right back to the studio and he says, I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
I'm going to be an animator for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
They'll never get rid of me. And and that's the thing that continues is
Right.
like, I will make animation till the day I die.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's just this beautiful moment. And, you know, and that's why I think it's like, we'll look at this movie and people who, I have a friend who loves watching movies, and she's like this like really beautiful model girl, and she's like, I was showing her old music videos because she's a lot in our music videos, and she's just like, what is this? This is like, they didn't have the budget for this time. You know, like in Russia we have all these cool like CGI beautiful cameras, it's amazing. And then she watches all these old school like, yeah, this is kind of cool and cute for like not having the technology. And I was like, no, it's just, this is the technology. You know, like watching a Nirvana music video is really cool still.
Yeah.
And
Love it.
that's what will always love about these kind of movies is that you think right now that these are sillily homemade, but they are masterful pieces.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That was awesome. I'm trying to think what was my answer. I was trying to remember. I had something to say about this category.
Sorry, you didn't actually bring up the category. I rudely interrupted you.
No,
I'm sorry.
it was great. No,
because I was still talking about production design.
no, this is great. No, this is the flow. I love it, and that's why you're here, is to add that type of stuff. It's great. There was one specific scene that this item. Oh God, what was it? There's a scene that really blew me away. You know what? Fuck it. I don't know. I'm gonna have to cut it out. I give this a clean desk. I love how Gilliam pulls us in with this stuff. I think one thing I love too is that with the clothing and stuff, it's really interesting that it's a futuristic society, but they're wearing, like, the men are still wearing 50s suits, like they look like admin. I think it's supposed to make us feel discombobulated.
Yeah.
It's like, we're in a futuristic world, but we're wearing old suits from the 40s. It's like, where are we?
And everyone's phone has its own switchboard.
Yes.
I think that's what makes it such a timeless film.
Yes.
Is the fact that you can't quite figure out when it's set.
Yeah, something bad happened. Now we're here, and we're all really confused.
Yeah.
And maybe the production design is making a commentary that the movie starts and ends with the ending, you know, because it's the loop, right? When you're revisiting your life, maybe it's all conjointed of many different things.
Yeah.
That's why nothing makes sense. That's why nothing is consistent.
Yeah.
With all the different costumes that are happening right then and there, that just feels like a dream.
Yeah.
You know?
You have to imagine back on what you said about your life flashing before your eyes. Like, and does your life flash before your eyes, or is it tidbits of your real life with the life you wanted, with the life you dreamt, with the life you fantasized about? Probably all of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like if
cool.
you drove a Honda, but your life flashed before your eyes and you have the Lamborghini or whatever. That's just a stupid example.
Man, no, that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. That's a movie idea right there.
Totally, yes.
Yeah. 5-0. Now we're getting to my homemade categories here. Here we go. Dystopia track. We're fresh off the Super Bowl. Everyone's talking about Kendrick Lamar's dissing of Drake. I don't give a shit about any of it because it's whatever. But dystopia track. How, as a dystopian film, you know, to me, it's like Mad Max is the best, like, anarchical version of dystopia, but this is organized, like, governmental, authoritarian. So how do we rate this? How do we view this as a dystopia film?
For me, this is the best dystopia films could ever be. It's been so overdone that now it's just the subject of teen movies. And it's kind of frustrating to see that, because you could do so much incredible stuff with creating these kinds of worlds, but I feel like it's just been so dumbed down over the last 40 years since this came out.
Yeah.
That I just it frustrates me now that we peaked with this 40 years ago.
Right.
So it's a clean desk for me. It is incredible, and I don't think it will ever be matched.
Yeah.
The only thing that tops the dystopia for me is Dark City.
Oh, yes. Same director as The Crow.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That movie is so brilliant with the architecture. You know, it's like before Christopher Nolan was Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Terry Gilliam meets Christopher Nolan in that movie. And that movie is, the reason why I say is I love the silliness of Terry Gilliam because it's a Terry Gilliam movie.
Yeah.
Dark City is not silly. And so I'm able to be a little bit more targeted in,
Mm.
and instead of the many different storylines that I love. I like being challenged, and I like the freedom of being challenged with a Terry Gilliam film. But if I want to be locked in and say dystopian, Dark City is #1 for me. That's what I would.
I'll have to see
I
that.
love that. It's really good.
Yeah.
Alex Proyas is awesome.
What is it? What is that one with? Geez, the one with who's Hellboy again?
Ron Perlman.
Who's the one with Ron Perlman in the dystopian city? It's City of Lost Children. No,
is that it? I don't know. I don't know which one you're talking about.
Oh man, it's because it's really incredible too. Ron Perlman.
Yeah, dystopia is a wide category.
Yeah.
And it's become wider over time.
Yeah. It's just, like I said, it's just kind of frustrating to watch it get more and more simplified. And I don't feel like there's any creativity in it now.
Yeah. City of Lost Children.
Oh, okay.
City of Lost Children is really incredible. I wonder if City of Lost Children inspired Children of Men.
Yeah,
Who
it looks
knows?
like it. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I'm just looking and reading about it now.
Is Children of Men also dystopian?
I think it would fall into that.
Dystopian, post-apocalyptic situation.
Those two get merged together all the time. But
Yeah. Then because I think Children of Men is also one of the most godly, inspiring. The reason why we have video games the way they are today is because of Children of Men.
Yeah.
And it's just a brilliant top #1 film. I mean, I wouldn't say it peaked with Terry Gilliam, but I think that Terry Gilliam is a great addition to it. Like he's like one of the great bands of this genre.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
And then, but I do hear what you say about this new generation of like dystopian teen, like,
because like even when I watched Fahrenheit 451, when HBO put it out, it was a well-made movie, but it still felt so sanitized as far as like this dystopian future that they were trying to portray. Even Equilibrium, which unfortunately hasn't held up for me. I rewatched it recently, and it's nowhere near as good as it was when I first watched it. Even then, the type of dystopian world that they've created is so sanitized compared to how Terry Gilliam handled it in Brazil.
Yeah.
You know, Terry Gilliam did another great dystopian film. I don't know if you saw it, but it is basically very similar to Without a Darker Reflection. And
it's almost like you love Terry Gilliam or something.
The Zero Theorem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's so similar to this movie. It's just an updated version of it.
Nice.
And it does feel like when I watch this movie, I'm like, man, this feels like Without Dark Reflection, without all the mirrors.
Yeah.
And it's very similar in that way. But also, is Planet of the Apes dystopian or is that apocalyptic?
You know, that's an interesting question because it technically takes place so many thousands of years after like current times that I don't know what it would be. I don't know what it would be considered because it does have aspects with like the destruction of New York and the atomic bombs going off. Like it does feel kind of more post-apocalyptic than dystopian.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with dystopian, you still have to have a society. You still have to have some sort of governmental structure within the world. So that's where, I talk with my hands.
No. I was about to be douchey. I was like, well, one could say that the monkeys are actually
Back to your
societies of themselves too. And who is one to say?
I mean, it's true. It is true. But like,
there's a government system between the chimps.
But it's also one that's died and been rebuilt versus the evolution, the natural evolution of what our society is going to become. I think that's probably the biggest difference between post-apocalyptic and dystopian.
I definitely go clean desk here because I love how I just think it's funny because like when we were kids, it was like we thought a flying car or like that was our idea of the future, but this one like predicts a future of incompetence.
Yeah.
That's your AI comments were very insightful because it's like making us lazier, that commentary like Gilliam saw that, like he saw that it could also be our end.
Yeah.
And that it could go a negative direction, that it's not going to necessarily empower us, that it could take our power. So I like that a lot. So I definitely give it a 1. I think it's one of the best. Like I think Mad Max personally is my favorite.
Love Mad Max. I love that filmmaker.
Yeah. Oh, George Miller.
He's so
Yeah.
good.
Road Warrior 2.
Love Babe the Pig.
He's
And I
amazing.
love Babe Pig in the City. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
And Happy Feet.
Yeah.
Happy Feet.
Yeah.
Like, what an incredible filmmaker to make Babe Pig in the City, which is like the best sequel of all time. Even better than Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Mad Max movies, which are just beyond
Yeah.
incredibly brilliant, all
Yep.
of the most.
Fury Road's my 5th favorite movie ever made. Like, it's just
incredible.
below Brazil for me. Like, it's there again. The way I structure my top 10 is there might be flaws, but I can't find fault in the films, even with the flaws.
Speaking of Brazil, last category here, 6-0. We are cleaning house here.
Cleaning desks.
Cleaning desk. Last category, Brazil nuts.
What?
This category is about, so here's how I approach movies like this, because I do dabble in the pretentiousness. I love reffing. I love people that are like self-aggrandizing
Yeah.
filmmakers. Like, I like that. But you said something earlier too that actually kind of affirmed why I made this category, like venues for certain types of films. People walking out of this movie, is it too inaccessible to comprehend? Because even I had to fast forward a few times. I had to rewatch scenes. I had to watch it 3 times. I watched it twice without the commentary, once with, just to make sure I got it
Yeah.
for this podcast. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think? Is it like just separating yourself from the love of it? Is there a level where it is a little too Brazil nuts, too nuts
I mean,
for the average viewer?
For me, if I'm not going to go see as we said earlier, a movie that was made strictly for entertainment,
Yeah.
I don't want to get it 100% the first time I watch it.
Okay.
Because at that point, I think it's too simple. I need a reason to revisit movies like this.
Same.
And so I think for this particular style of filmmaking, it lends itself to make you rewatch it, because there is so much going on that, especially the first time you watch it, you're so overwhelmed by all the absurdity and craziness that you see on the screen that you have to go back through to start picking out the details of why certain things turn certain ways during the story.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It is a very, I mean, it's an art house film, and art house, I think, has to lend itself towards that kind of open-ended, gives you a reason to rewatch and revisit. So for me, it's a clean desk, because I do think it shouldn't be totally accessible the first time you watch it. I think it has to have reasons to go back to it.
Yeah.
For me, it is too much. It is too much for anyone. Is it my favorite Terry Gilliam film? No. My favorite Terry Gilliam film is probably going to be Dr. Parnassus, which I think is brilliant. And I think it's really intelligent about how he didn't give up on such a film. Even Heath Ledger is one of my favorite actors in the world. And for him to come up with a creative solution out of respect, I thought was great.
Yeah.
And I
it
thought
worked.
I thought it was so funny how some people would just say, how dare him like choose other actors to play him. I don't think that Heath Ledger would have been ever disrespected on that. I think Heath Ledger he loved the art so much.
Yeah.
And I think that was such a especially as a filmmaker, for us as filmmakers, we need to finish what we start.
Yeah.
And it's so, especially for me, I haven't finished a lot of things, and it breaks my heart. It haunts me. I have haunting nightmares about it. And I love Baron Munchausen. Baron Munchausen is such an incredible film too. I think it's so magical. That's my second favorite. And then, I think I like Brazil more than Zero Theorem. I hate Thailand. I think that's one of the worst movies I've ever seen my whole life. I absolutely think it's a terrible film. I was very disappointed in The Man Who Killed Don, Quixote.
Oh, right. He did do that one.
Yeah, but I loved his documentary Lost in La Mancha more. I love 12 Monkeys, but that's a different kind of category. And Fear and Loathing, I'm not the biggest fan of it either.
Yeah.
And
it didn't nail the novel.
No, and I also just don't really care for Johnny Depp's performance in it. And I think it started a generation of guys who want to overact like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And somehow he overacted his overacting the older he got.
Yeah. And so I think that this movie is too much. But for us who are Terry Gilliam fans, it's great. It's just enough.
Yeah.
It really is just enough, and we love him for it, and we think it's great for it. I'm not mad about anything about it. But if I was teaching a class and I understood that people were like, can we just watch something else? I'm like, let's watch some other movies. I would suggest let's watch some other movies before we watch this one.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be. Let's watch some other movies and give a couple of years, and then let's watch Brazil.
Yeah.
You know, and I think because then you'll really appreciate it, and especially everything we talked about. It's ahead of its time.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah. So what's your final answer on that one?
It's not a clean desk.
Central Services.
Okay.
Yeah. God, I went back and forth. And the reason I made this category was because of the people walking out of it and like knowing what time it was made in. And you talked about venues. I also went Central Services because I also love to be challenged. I think Gilliam, and to your point, I think he's been more cohesive with complex messages in other films. I do think there are moments where this film makes big jumps. And I, after 3 viewings, get it and dig it and love it. It really meant a lot. But I'm just putting myself in the shoes of like a person like in 1984 or 85, like what in the... Where's Eddie Murphy? Where's Chevy Chase? You know, I do think there are moments where it's a little overlong and it could have been a tad simplified just to really make the message a tad more cohesive. And Gilliam's not interested in being accessible. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
That's why there are 5 versions of this movie. There are literally 5 versions. He did 4 commentaries. In this commentary, he said, and this is the last time I'm ever doing this commentary. He's like, this is the 5th and final commentary for this movie.
Oh, that's funny.
And he's more pissed off with each one. He doesn't really look back on this movie fondly. So I love the messaging. It resonates deeply, the dreaming aspect of it. But I do think there are just a few subtle transitionary moments, especially between reality and dreams, because, you know, like you asked a great question, where's the psychosis begin?
Yeah.
I think as the movie goes along, it gets a little more rhythmic where, okay, I get the jumps. I get where I'm going. But early on, I think it's very muddy as to what this is. The commentary is a little lost. So that's why I did go Central Services, but we still got a 6-1 here.
Yeah.
I think what's really nice is, though, at the time, when we went out to the movies, it was nice to see a long movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we went out to the movie because that's what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't like, oh, I saw the movie and I got to get home and then I got to get on my phone.
It was the event.
It was the event, and I love that that's the event. And
Yep.
I love long movies.
Yeah.
Talking
Same.
about the Brutalist.
Yep.
I loved it so much. I want to watch it again, and I didn't even feel like the 3 hours.
Yeah.
30 minutes. It felt like.
I love long movies that aren't about superheroes. No offense.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm glad we get along with that too.
Yeah.
Gamer. You know.
I said this in the last podcast. Like Snyder asked for 4 hours of my time for that. No,
You know
but
what's really unfortunate about the Marvel films and why DC is so much better. Everyone's gonna hate me. Everyone's gonna hate me.
And that's where we connect.
Yeah.
Is the villains suck.
Yeah.
The villains are such garbage, undeveloped, one-dimensional, non-existent, not realistic, brainwashing, lame characters.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm bad guy. Look at my fist. Could you think of a more douchier thing than being like, fist guy and I'm bad?
Yeah.
You know,
The Fister.
Like the Fister, you know? It's just like
Fister, I barely know her.
And like with DC, it's like, we all love the Joker.
Yeah.
We all love Scarecrow.
Yeah.
We all love these really dark, tormented characters who have backstories, who have personalities, who have you want to dress up as them.
Yeah.
Right.
No one's dressing up as Obadiah from the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah. Obadiah.
Yeah. I don't even remember who that is.
He's Jeff Bridges. He's the main villain in the first Iron Man movie. Yeah.
All I remember from Iron Man is Iron Man.
Yeah.
That's all I can remember. You're watching Marvel movies for the superhero.
Yeah.
And you're not watching it for the villain. So you're not excited to go against what's like to take that person down because those characters are so boring. You're like, when are you gonna kill him? Is he dead yet? I mean, like, let's wrap it up, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, when you root for your villain, like Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
Like,
Bane too.
Yeah.
Bane. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the biggest difference between Steppenwolf in Justice League and Steppenwolf in the Snyder Cut. Was like, you watch the Snyder Cut and you finally see this menacing motherfucker, but then you also get that backstory of like, oh no, he's in the doghouse with the people he's working with.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's depth to him finally. He's not just alien number 7.
Yeah. 6-1 Brazil. We found ourselves on a lot of amazing tangents here, but it was great. What an interesting film. And I'm guessing that you may not have watched this film before, and I hope you went and watched it before you listened to this whole podcast episode. It's a great film. Go check it out. Dive into some Terry Gilliam. So glad to have you again, Mozart. Your perspective was fantastic. And is there anything that you got coming out, any music videos or films coming out you want people to check out, or
music?
Yeah, I got a bunch of new music videos coming out. Hopefully I can finish them. I've been taking more of my time on them. If there's anything I do have to say as someone who's a musician or a filmmaker and an influencer with 135,000 followers and have gotten to work with Netflix, Adobe, Ray-Bans, Nike, and Starbucks even.
Yeah.
You know, don't make things that are going to be timeless. Take your time on it. It's okay. Let's stop making fast food content.
Yeah.
It's really soul sucking. Don't follow trends.
Make your own.
Why would you contribute to something that's not going to change things? And I get people telling me the same thing. Oh, there's like, well, if everything was challenging, we wouldn't appreciate it. It's like, no, why would you dumb our human race like that?
Yeah.
We all are capable of developing constantly every single day and learning things. We're just making the excuse that we're lazy. I think that whatever you do, it has to be timeless and honest, and don't rush it, because when you make content that is just for the trend or just for the minute, no one's going to remember it. And what we just watched is rememberable. And I want whatever we do for the rest of our lives to exist. You know, here we are at the age that we're at, and Terry Gilliam just made something so many years ago, and we're still
40
talking
years
about,
ago.
and you think that your TikTok video, and this is from somebody who used to post 3 times a day, every single day, and go live for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night. I understand it, and don't abuse yourself, and don't write a song just because it needs to help the algorithm, that no one's going to remember and care about it. No one is covering those songs. Everybody's covering Beatles songs.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's covering Led Zeppelin songs and Rolling Stone songs because they took time. And I think that's the most important thing about whatever we do in life.
And then people call you fat on TikTok too. Fuck you guys for that. I've lost 40 pounds, motherfuckers.
It looks good.
Thank you. Look at me. He didn't even know me before, and he knows how good I look. 40-pound guy. Well, don't find yourself in a dystopian future here. I love that. Be creative. Be yourself. I am Kyle myself.
I'm Seth.
Mozart Gabriel.
Love y'all guys. Y'all guys. Us guys. Y'all guys. Bye.
Movie Wars.